I remember the first time, vividly, that Maribel said my name, Gabriel. In that sexy, smooth, succulent, vivacious, adventurous way, that Spanish accent that just hit me right here. It was like I was automatically transported to some exotic island with palm trees and umbrella toothpicks in my drink, and I was making out with my señorita under a palapa, and she was whispering Pablo Neruda in my ear. And our kids were off in the sand barefoot playing with some indigenous kids. And everything was so lovely and so beautiful. And at 15 years old, there is no question that I was showing very strong signs of becoming a hopeless romantic. But it wasn't Maribel specifically that I was in love with. It was the idea of Maribel. I mean, I would always say if she was like 40 years younger and about 250 pounds lighter and she wasn't my godmother, I would have made a move on her. But it was more about what she represented. She was sweet and composed, and she had this inner beauty. No, honestly, she had this inner beauty. And she had a sense of adventure and a sense of romance and the idea of long flowing white skirts and flamenco guitar. I wanted to find a Maribel that would rock my world. So no, it wasn't to study pre-Columbian art or become fluent in a second language or study the Inca ruins or become more independent or socially conscious. No, the reason, Mom, that I wanted to study abroad was so I could find a young Maribel and fall in love. Valparaiso, Chile is beautiful. My school, La Católica, is up on this mountainside, and you have to take these ascensores, which are like wooden rickety elevators that go up and down the hillside. And that's actually where my school was and where my family homestay was, with another gringo, another extranjero. Me and Brandon lived up there. But on one day, and it was actually really cool because we got tapped into the fabric of Chilean life. You know, we really got to experience the food and the culture and commuting to school. But we were totally inconvenient for going out to the clubs and having fun and meeting girls. So on one day, when we were going to look for some local weed in the community, we came across this small little beach town called Reñaca, right outside of Valparaiso. That day, we moved out of our homestay and got an apartment with 2 stoner surfers from Chile. And we stayed there for the rest of the semester. It was a brilliant move on our part, I gotta say. Right away, we were tapped into the social pipeline of Chile. We had free passes to all the clubs. At night, they showed us the nightlife. At day, they showed us the culture. We studied Spanish and smoked weed and meet girls. It was exactly what I came to do. And I made that decision, not my parents in the application. That was all me. So it was empowering, I must say. Well, it was on this one day in the back of Gordo's house. Gordo, they all have these names. Gordo, Flaco, Negro, Guaton, Chubby. Like, who the fuck wants to be called Chubby when they're chubby, right? And that's how they roll. Nacho. I don't know what Nacho meant, but that was my dude. I love Nacho. So we're in the back of Gordo's house, all smoking a puro and talking shit. Well, honestly, I wasn't talking shit. I was working on overload, translating subjunctives and past perfects and Chilean slang, just trying to stay in the game, right? I'm smoking, I'm trying to be cool. Everyone starts throwing in a hot sí, claro. Cereal? De puta madre! They love it when I cuss. Es mi gringo, hijo de puta madre! And they love that shit, so I just throw that in when I was totally out of it. So I was in this little cipher of we smoking a conversation, and I realized that I'd been overcome by a sudden case of cottonmouth. My lip was actually stuck to my cheek. So if I would have been called out in that moment to be like, oh, what do you think of the Chilean? I would have had nothing. So I automatically excused myself to get some water. And when I went inside, bam, that's where she was. It was just a silhouette of her, that long brown hair lapping against her perfect round ass. I remember just staring at her, and I don't know how long, but I actually do know how long because I checked like Pink Floyd's The Wall was 7 minutes and 23 seconds. And so that totally explains why when she turned around and noticed that I was looking at her, there was that awkward moment like, what are you looking at me, motherfucker? And I was. So we had that awkward thing, hola, soy Gabriel, gringo. And I immediately excused myself to the bathroom to drown myself in the water fountain and hit reset. Well, several days later, I approached Nacho, and I said, Nacho, you gotta give me Daniela's number. And he was actually really excited by this, because apparently none of the other Chileans were able to permeate Daniela yet. And if anyone could do it, he thought the gringo could do it. And I was actually really excited by this news, because that meant that she was pure. She was my angel, she was my love. She wasn't exploited by all these other Chilean guys. No, this was romance, my friend. I was looking for a wife. I didn't want my little stoner buddies to have already been there, done that. I wanted to be This is romance, don't forget, this is about So, I had her number in my pocket. So, in a sense, I succeeded. I got the hottest girl in my pocket. I could have given up there, but I couldn't give up because gordo or flaco or nacho or guatón. Entonces, ya culiaste, ya chupaste las tetas, ya aplicaste ya Spider. And I couldn't stand there and keep saying, ya pronto. So, on one rainy night, I locked myself in a phone booth with a fistful of Chilean moneda. Boom, boom, boom. Cost so much money to make a phone call. Or I mean, it was like 5,000 pesos. And I called. And at first I had to talk to her mother. Her mother answered, which is, if you've ever spoken another language, on the phone it's a completely different game than in the streets. There's no eye contact, there's no charm, there's no, you read the lips, it's just you against the phone. But I managed to get through this, and actually I was kind of excited by the fact that I had to talk to her mom, because it was like the real Latin experience of courting a girl. Like, you got to talk to her parents, and then you get elevated to her. So I got permission, and then all of a sudden Daniela was on the phone. And I think it went pretty well. Like, she said something about like how she's been studying, and there's some party, but ultimately she obliged to my date to invite her over to my house for dinner. Dinner. Well, what was I thinking? I'm inviting a Latina girl over to my house for dinner where I live with 3 Chilean stoners with 1 pan between us. It was a stupid idea, but in hindsight, I get what I was thinking. I was thinking, I want to distinguish myself from all the other guys who take her to the courtyard at McDonald's, which is actually a hot spot in the or the ladies' night at Club Kamikaze, which is a great time. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to, make myself the El Gringo, something different, the Don Quixote, not the Don Juan. So I was like, dinner, perfect. Well, the day of the date was the most productive day of my 20 years. First, it was cleaning the house. No one in my little circle of friends had a vacuum, so I rented a vacuum. You can rent a vacuum in Valparaiso, Chile for 50 pesos for an hour. The problem is you have to walk through town with the vacuum in your hands back and forth, which is not a good look. Second of all, and I cleaned the house. Second of all was the food shopping. I walked into the supermercado. I forgot to mention, apart from top ramen and eggs and guacamole, I was completely useless. So I would center the meal around guacamole. I walked in, boom, rotisserie chicken, avocado, onion, cilantro, and I bought this lemon-flavored vodka. Now, I remember this lemon-flavored vodka for a couple reasons. Most specifically because that shit was really expensive. And I was on a student budget, but I figured, if it's gonna loosen me up, and it's gonna loosen her up, and it's gonna get me that much closer to love, fuck it. Spend your parents' money, right? So I got the vodka. I got back, and I had an agenda. First was to shave and to get, clean and shiny, then get back in the house, make a mixtape. I was super into mixtape. Harper, and Bob Marley, and TV2, everything was beautiful. Then I had to translate the conversations I anticipated on having. This is actually how I learned Spanish. I would think about the conversations that I might have that day. I'd write them down in English. I'd sit down with the verb dictionary and the English-Spanish dictionary. I'd write them, and I'd memorize these mini monologues. So if someone asks you, hey, why did you decide to come to Chile? Or, so, what do you do back home? Or, why do you love theater? Or, what do you do for fun? I have that shit memorized. I can be very eloquent in Spanish. So I have about about 15 monologues ready in my head. So I commenced the cooking, chopping the onions, chopping the cilantro, shredding the chicken, put on a little Ben Harper. So excited. Doorbell rings. Now, I don't answer the doorbell on the first ring, because I saw in Three's Company that Jack Tripper told Janet that if you answer the doorbell on the first ring, it means you're desperate, you've been waiting. And if it worked for Jack Tripper, it's gonna work for me. So I let that doorbell ring, continue cooking good, doorbell twice, that's my cue. I run over, I got the spatula in my hand as a prop, like cooking, And I say, ¿Quién es? I didn't even say ¿Quién es? But it felt good, ¿Quién es? I was gonna say that, no one ever came over. Oh, Gabriel, soy Daniela. Right? She said my name. This is going to be really, really good. The girl said my name. So I open the door, and my eyes don't meet her beautiful brown eyes. Instead, they meet the eyes of a 6-foot-tall, chiseled Chilean with a Quicksilver tank top on and some khakis on. And I know he's wearing Quicksilver because it was like Prada and Renyaka, like wearing Quicksilver. And I was wearing Quicksilver too. And she said something like, "Hola, Gabriel, este es mi amigo Vaca." This dude's nickname was Vaca, which means cow. This guy was no cow. He was actually very handsome. I would call him guapo if I had a nickname. But in the moment, I was thinking, hijo de la puta, con su madre, not eating my guacamole. Well, of course I didn't say that. I was like, oh, no problem. She said something, okay, Gabriel, de repente me di cuenta que teníamos una fiesta y entonces la vaca puede caminar por el camino, nosotros podemos comer juntos y después me voy. Basically that she just remembered to have a surprise party and she'd come in and eat and the vaca would go walk around and do this little thing in the neighborhood and then she'd have to leave. It actually, it's nice that you guys are like laughing. It was really sad. It was actually incredibly devastating. Like I said, I worked so hard for this night. I let her in, and I brought out the guacamole, I put the mixtape on. I did a couple monologues, and I showed her some pictures of home, what it was like to be in Los Angeles. And, I don't know Michael Jackson. And then, she left. And when she left, and that door closed, I was alone. I was totally alone. And I got that lemon flavored vodka out. That right when I saw the vodka, and I poured myself a glass, and poured myself another glass. Poured myself another glass. And tears started coming down my face. And I realized in that moment just how lonely I was. And I hadn't cried in so long. And it felt so good but so bad, that feeling. I was all alone in this country. And I honestly just needed to talk to someone and to get a hug. And it wasn't gonna happen. So I composed myself and I called Gabriel about it.